Hi, guys. Welcome to Real Food Recovery. We are excited today because Shay is going to be joining us for this special episode. Yay, Shay's one of our other RFR coaches. She's a certified health and life coach, niching in habit and behavior change, a root cause trauma informed coach with a particular focus on nervous system health, and a certified functional nutritional counselor approaching the person holistically, which we love that. And she loves helping people become who they are uniquely and originally created to be, and to help them heal, grow, thrive physically, emotionally, mentally, and spiritually. And her mission is to see others set free from what has kept them caged for years so they can help move the needle in making the world a far better place. So we are hoping not just to have her today, but have her more frequently with Jamie and I. And this is a good time to say hello to Jamie and ask her how things are going in her world today.
Going well, going well. Glad to be here. This is a little bit of a interesting topic, so I'm looking forward to that.
Hmm. Yes, I think so too. And bringing that to fruition, we are going to be tackling a question today that so many people in recovery ask. I'm doing the work. Why aren't I losing weight? Is my recovery even working? Why am I not skinny yet? Because let's be honest, the scale can be a very deceiving friend. And maybe even the bigger question is that should we even be thinking about the scale when we are in recovery, especially when we start recovery? Are we searching for skinny or are we searching for peace? This is a huge topic because, as we always say, recovery is not a weight loss program, it's a healing process. But that can be hard to accept when diet culture has told us for years that if we just eat right for a few weeks, that weight should just magically fall off.
Yeah, so again, this topic is something that I have over the course of my years of recovery have a very different opinion on as I've grown and changed and my recovery has changed. Um, and as far as you know, this topic of, using this one metric, right, your body shape as the barometer for success is, for me, as I've matured in my recovery, is just an example of of the disorder in action, right? So I have a lot of, probably unpopular and very differing opinions about this topic, but that's, one of the things that why we wanted to do this episode today.
Yeah, yeah, so beautiful. I love what you said there, Jamie, about as we've matured, as you've matured on your journey. And I think I know that this is a very close to my heart topic because I work with so many, particularly the ladies who come in with heartbreak, don't they? And what we do know is that recovery is not a crash diet. It's not a quick fix. It's not a protocol. Recovery is about undoing the damage that those ultra processed foods have done to our bodies, our minds, our hearts, our communities, you name it. And that takes time. That takes time. Today, oh, I'm so thrilled that we're talking about this today. We're going to dive into why patience is key, what's really happening inside our body when we start recovering, and how we can shift our focus from weight loss to true, deep, real healing. Okay, because that's where we want to go. We want deep healing in that sense. So let's start with some non-scale victories, those deeper, often overlooked signs that our body is healing and our efforts are paying off, because they will pay off, friends. We've got to trust the process. And so if you're frustrated at the lack of movement on the scale or anything like that, please stick around because this conversation is just for you.
I love what you said about there's often overlooked signs because we just want that needle to move on the scale, but there are so many beautiful signs in our life that honestly I think it takes effort to notice. And it's sad if we do miss those. We're really missing out on a lot of beautiful things in our life. So we're going to start by addressing why weight loss tends to dominate the conversation. Why do you think so many people get stuck on the idea that success equals shedding pounds? For me, and I'll ask you guys what you think about that. I think from my young teen years, I was desperate to fit in, right? And there was a certain body type that was accepted, revered, popular, and the only way to fit in and be in the cool kids club at that time was to have that identical body type as all the other stick figure people did. It didn't matter if they were mean or anything else like that, they were still accepted. And so, on some psychological level, somewhere that messaging got into my brain that that's what you needed to do in order to be, I'm doing air quotes, happy. Then add in the pressure from the diet culture to lose weight and all the gimmicks to lose weight fast with programs that provide these smaller portions of just ultra processed food. And they expect you to stick with it and keep it off. And there's any diet, I don't know about you guys. I don't know if you've been on every diet in the world, but I have. But there was never one peep about a skill or mindset or plans or anything like that. So all those hopes and dreams are nothing but a setup for disaster and severe depression. I liked what you said earlier, Shay, that you used the word heartbreak, total heartbreak over and over and over again. So tell me what you guys think. What is your opinion about the main focus? Why do you think there's so much focus on losing weight over addressing those underlying, those baseline issues that drive the weight gain to begin with? Jamie, what's on your mind? What do you think?
Again, for me, it was I was never about being skinny as much as it was about changing who I was at the core, right? I had a, deep disconnection from who I was at its core. And that was, for lots of reasons, childhood trauma and emotional and psychological and, verbal abuse, all kinds of things that were sort of given to me as a child, stories and beliefs that were given to me as a child and sort of put upon me. And then as I aged, I had already internalized those messages. So I just kind of took them with me as I grew up. And it really wasn't, for me about ever being skinny. It was just about not being so big that I drew attention. So again, my experience is so different. I've been exposed to the diet culture. I understand the pervasiveness of it, and it's sad and shocking how sick culture it has created, and how it has perpetuated and provoked so many people who have issues around food and body shape. It really is very sad, but for me, it was deeper than that. It was deeper than just the way that I looked. It was just a rejection of my whole self.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, so good. And it's interesting because listening to both of what you ladies have said, there's a really key common sort of theme of relationship and connection and belonging. And in fact, I always ask, like, what's the why? Like, going to the deep reason, what is at the heart of why our behaviors and our habits are showing up the way they are? Whose message are we actually really buying into? And I thought long and hard about this. I mean, there's so many spaces we can go into and answers we can go into this, but two of the kind of general things that I thought, if I think about myself, and I understand myself now, years later, I understand myself so much more. One of the reasons I believe it's an inner kind of game thing is that we're wired for belonging and community. And both of you have alluded to that already. We're wired for connection, okay? If we look at our 6 core human needs, love, safety, belonging, purpose, certainty, freedom. Belonging is right there at the center. Belonging or acceptance. The message of how do we fit in? How do we find acceptance? How do we find ourselves belonging as part of something? And that If that's via weight loss, air quotes, if that's via looking a certain way, acting a certain way, it goes without saying that the human nature is going to do everything it can. Our kind of inner being is going to drive us in that direction. And then there's another reason, and I'm probably putting my head on the chopping block here a little bit. It's a large global conversation that hasn't really been happening until recently. Holistic health, okay? We're seeing that shift happening now.
Thank
What's at the
God.
core? Yeah, absolutely. What's at the core of this? I'm going to say it, money or greed, should I say.
Mhm.
If we can keep you sick, we can make money off you. If we can sell you protocols, we can make money off you. Now, I was actually just looking in
Protocols that don't work, protocols that
exactly,
don't solve the real issue.
Totally.
They just
Yeah, they
exactly.
address
don't
out
they don't
external.
maintain clients. Yeah.
Exactly, 100%. So just very briefly, I was looking yesterday at some stats, okay? The global weight loss industry's net worth is substantial, okay? It's growing rapidly. Recent reports, the global weight loss services market size was valued, now this is in US dollars, in 2022, $174.88 billion. Wow. Expected to reach, in US dollars, 313.49 billion by 2032. That is huge. Other reports, 405.4 billion by 2030. Something is not quite right there, you know. And so there's this messaging. What is the global messaging? But like I said, the script is flipping, thankfully, you know.
Mhm. Well, yeah, if you think about those numbers, there's so much money being poured into it. That's a lot of marketing dollars out there to
Mhm.
create people's perception of what they need to be and who they need to be. That's
Good.
a big campaign. I can't imagine how many other industries are bigger than that. So yeah, they've got to be making a dent in the
Yeah,
marketplace for sure.
yeah,
So I love I think I right on. I love what you said. And I think weight is often how we measure health in the medical world as well. So that adds to that. I've got got a doctor's appointment next week and I already know I've got to weigh in and I'm ashamed to say it's on my mind. It's been in the back of my mind since I made the appointment. Like, oh my gosh. And I I will just admit that first thing is, well, I'm not going to eat for the next month. But and of course, then I have the self-talk, but that still is just a little bitty message in the back of my head that you've got this coming up that
yeah,
I've got to step on that scale in front of everybody, which I don't weigh myself because of the things that it drums up in my head. But weight is the easiest thing to track, but it's far from the full picture is the problem. It's confusing why the focus isn't on recovery from ultra processed foods and healing from the inside first, because we know the changes you're making aren't always visible right away. And for some people, weight loss might not even happen for months, or it might not be the main result at all, which is frustrating for people. And I understand that. And it is a real concern. So I'm not dismissing anybody to have concerns in that area. So, but again, that doesn't mean that the work that you're doing isn't making a huge impact. And I have to say that, again, I avoid the scale at home, but I don't know why it still affects me so much. And I've had the training, so I can imagine for people that are just getting started, how difficult that must be. It does take some work to get to the right headspace around it.
yeah.
So you know that, Paige, you can just tell the doctor or the nurse that's weighing you, I don't want to see the number, and they will just ask you to turn around and face your back to the scale. So there's that,
Yeah,
and then you can
I've
just
thought
simply
about that.
say, "Don't tell me the number," right? And it'll be on your record, right? And
Mhm.
you can also ask the doctor. I'm recovering from disordered behaviors with
From
the
weighing
scale.
myself,
Yeah,
recovering from
and
weighing
I
myself
please,
obsessively.
please don't disclose what the number is verbally to me. If I want to see it, I know where to find it. That's how you handle it. It's how I've handled it for years. It they're very compassionate, they're very understanding, and they don't even miss a beat. They're like, no problem, turn around, and they weigh you when they're done. Like it's really not a big deal.
I'm glad you brought that conversation up because I think that is well worth speaking out about.
Totally. And again, with thinking about moving away from scale, like the my or anyone's number as it pertains to the gravitational pull on their body, it really is totally irrelevant. It is completely irrelevant. And for me, I look at recovery, and this is why when Paige and I developed Real Food Recovery, we chose that word recovery. And it was very important to me that we did, because this is so much bigger than food. It's so much bigger than weight. It's so much bigger than body shape. It's so much bigger than clean eating or health. It really is about recovering our true selves. And our true selves were designed and developed, by a creator of the universe that I choose to call and believe in, God. We were designed as divine expressions of the universal source of love and light and truth. Like, that is, our bodies are vessels for this creation of love. So the idea that I can relegate it to a simple number is frankly, it's insulting to the creator of the universe. So that's why when I measure my worth in recovery, or my place in recovery, I look at, what do my actions look like? The journey is the destination. The destination is not the number on the scale. I've been there. I've hit the number on the scale, and it did not change a thing about who I was as a human.
Isn't that funny? And it was still never enough.
Of course, one way or the other. One way or
Mhm.
the other. I was never full enough, when I was morbidly obese, and I was never thin enough when I was on the other side of that journey.
Okay.
So there is nothing about a number, a size, a measurement that can dictate my worth, even though for years I let it. What I measure my recovery on today is truly, how much of my true self have I recovered? How am I connected to my community? How am I serving others? How am I connected to God? How am I, all of our branches, right? How do I move my body? How do I celebrate the way that it's created and designed to move and to live in the world? How do I nourish myself? How do I nourish my relationships? How do I show up in the world? How do I show up for myself? So it might look like the number of meetings that I lead or attend. It might look like the number of conversations I have with people in recovery, and the people that, that lead me, like sponsors, and the people that I lead. How often do I connect with what really matters to me in a day? And those are better barometers than any number in a pant waistband or on a scale could ever be. That is how I measure my success.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I love that. I love that. That's so good, because actually we're redefining what true health and wellness is. It's learning to honor who we are. It's down to our value and our worth, honoring me as a person, honoring you. One of my favorite descriptions of honor is the value that we assign ourselves or a person. So how are we learning to honor ourselves? And for me, it's that holistic, whole person wellness, like learning that there's a whole unique individual that comes into play here. And, very similar. How are my basics? How are my relationships? My sense of fulfillment? How am I showing up in this world? Who am I being? There's a big difference between being, air quotes, thin versus well and healthy, as it were. And I love that approach, that everything is connected, all things matter, we're all unique. And when my clients come to me and we start journeying together, and some will come with, I want to let go of X amount of unwanted fat, etc. And that's okay. That's important to them. But we have to redefine what their understanding and their personal idea of success, health, well-being, etc. And that changes over time. And I often say to them, if we can't design it, we can't define it. So we've got to make something tangible, work with a unique person, working with someone that can pull the gold out of us. And that's what I love, particularly, Paige and Jamie, about Real Food Recovery, is it's pulling the gold out of the unique individual here. Their recovery journey is unique and different, and it's individual, helping them understand that there's a greater thing than the weight or the scale, as it were, you know, and also just helping them understand things like when we start to understand why our body's holding on to things, like holding on to fat is highly likely a survival adaptation strategy. You know, if we try and all kinds of things, whether we're in a nervous system dysregulation, we're trying to be unseen or whatever's happening, you know, there's so many reasons why underneath. And I think, you know, what's really powerful and precious is that it's my role, our roles to help, first of all, us and others become more of who they're created to be. And from that place, whatever they're created to do, out of their who flows their do, you know? So,
I
yeah.
love that.
Yeah, I agree with all of that so much. And for me, I stay away from the scale because my main goal is peace and calm, and there's nothing that robs me, whether it's a good outcome or a bad outcome, still a disruptor of my mental peace, and it can make me spin out in either direction. But nothing is more significant to me than that inner peace. And especially as I've grown and matured, that has become more significant as I've grown in recovery, or I even like to say healing journey instead of recovery. And the other thing for me is I know that sugar is my number one disruptor of mental health, or getting started into anything that's super processed. It's game over for me physically and mentally if I get down that dark path with sugar. It terrifies me to go back there. So being able to take a long car ride for a vacation and stay calm, or being on vacation and staying out of the food, that's a sign of progress in my life, or going out to dinner without anxiety is another sign. And I'm so grateful when I can do these things without regret. I was talking to Shay about having a babysitting weekend this past weekend, and uh, I had told her about my plans, my extensive plans for getting through it. Um, because there was all kinds of temptations in the home that I don't have control over, and also making 3 meals a day and snacks for someone else and food that I don't normally eat. And I was able to come home without too much regret of anything I had done. And that is glorious. That does not just happen by accident. We've got to put the work in. And I did. I put in a lot of work, a lot of skill power. I'd made a hard decision. I'd made a plan. I'd made a plan B, and it works. It works. And a strong mindset really does pay off. And those are the things that we help people with in recovery with big events coming up in their life. That's just one of the things. So anyway, let's talk a little bit more about what some of the people we have worked with have shared. Jamie, you want to start out?
For sure. So one of the, again, when we think about the first signs of recovery, we talked about, improved energy levels. Again, this could be related to energy levels in your body related to sleep and movement. It could be related to food. It could be related to the kinds of food that we eat and how it affects us physically and emotionally and mentally, right? Because food has deep effects on all of those things. And it also can be about, how we have um, chosen to move our body and use our energy for the day, right? If we overdo it, we can have a lack of energy in that way too. And that can absolutely affect our stamina and our ability to function in the world. But again, if we think about the ways that we move, the ways that we fuel our bodies, those all have effects on
Mm.
how our body shows up in the world, right? It
Mm.
simply does. If anyone is not aware of that, please go back and listen to some of our earlier episodes that will go into great detail on the way that we choose to fuel ourselves and how it affects our
Yeah.
our actual physical expression.
Yeah. Yeah, totally. Absolutely. So beautiful. And I love one of the other signs that we hear our members quite early and clients also well that I journey with that really shifts is the quality of our sleep. I love my sleep, and it's no
Yeah.
surprise that sleep is one of our core kind of like, branches, as it were. And I know we subscribe to this belief here is that our day starts the night before. That for me was a game changer when I landed on that a number of years ago. To be able to shift, to move into my day from a place of rest rather than fall crash into bed is a huge.
Mhm.
And I love that the example or the picture that we are a symphony. Paige is a symphony, Jamie's a symphony. And if I don't guard my sleep, that symphony the next day is messy and it's noisy and there's a whole lot of just out of order. It's one hang of a mess, and that's just in my head. Never mind the results that comes out. So I have to really guard my sleep. It's a top non-negotiable for me. And we've got to understand that processed foods, they mess with our endocrine system or our hormone symphony, as it were, and that ultimately affects us on a cellular level, our mitochondria, those little, energy producing guys that help us show up in the world. And so knowing that what we feed is what is going to grow. And bear with me, I'm going to get a little bit geeky here just very quickly, but ultra processed foods, they contain a cocktail of chemicals that
Mhm.
hijack our receptors. And we know this. They hijack our receptors like our dopamine, that pleasure reward, the leptin, the fullness, the ghrelin, the hunger. Basically, it just confuses our body, okay, leading to
Mhm.
overconsumption, addiction, health problems, you name it, all those different things, okay? It impacts ultimately our circadian rhythm, which is just a fancy name for our internal
Yeah.
clock and our sleep-wake
Yeah.
cycle. So we've got to remember that once we shift that and we have that core basic of sleep, everything looks and feels better the next day on a good night's sleep.
Yeah. Agree. That is such a big one for me too. I think it's really, I always say that the food is the most important, but I think sleep actually for me, I probably need to re-say that because I think it's like almost equal to my clean food as far as healthy living, especially as I've aged. So, anyway, another one that people have often overlooked is improved digestion by cutting out the ultra processed food. That can do wonders for your gut. And haven't you heard of those stories of people saying, "Wait, my bloating is gone," or it's not as bad, and also my heartburn. I know I used to be on a lot of heartburn medicine. I'm not on that anymore. Maybe fewer stomach cramps or even more regular bowel movements have been improved once you start getting more fiber in your system and water in your system. But the gut is so responsive when you start feeding it whole, nourishing foods. I can remember those times after a binge where my stomach was in so much pain. It actually felt like it was going to explode. I mean, I was worried that I was going to break something from my inside. Honestly, it hurt to move, and being in such extreme pain, and at the same time, this is so weird, the pain of being in the binge where you were full, but your
Mhm.
brain would not allow you to stop eating. There was still an itch in your brain to keep going because it was painful to stop as well, because the brain was begging for just another hit of dopamine, and food was the catalyst to make that happen. Horrible, 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 dark, ugly place. And I can never go back to that place of torture. So definitely digestion is
Mhm.
such a grateful part of recovery. And quite frankly, bad digestion can really ruin a good day. There's just nothing worse, right? It's
Yeah,
hard to be chipper. It's hard to be your best self when you've got bad digestion going on.
a gut's full, literally.
Oh.
Yeah, yeah, sure.
When again, leading to another sign is reduced inflammation, right? So this one's much harder to maybe see, but we can certainly feel it. People might notice joint pain easing, fewer headaches, or even clearer skin. Skin health is a great marker of internal health. When you're healing, you might notice fewer breakouts, less redness, or an overall glow. Again, this is something that we've talked a lot about in our episodes so far. So I encourage you to go back to the beginning of our episodes We talk about this in lots of different areas, especially food related shows. Um, and again, do have an episode coming up that's specifically devoted to skin health, and that's coming here in the next few months. And I would say that for me, one of the best ways that I know that I'm on the right track for fueling my body appropriately is seeing those inflammatory symptoms like joint pain and the way that my skin feels and just my overall water retention goes away. All of those things
Mhm.
go away and resolve when I'm fueling my body appropriately. How
Yeah,
about you,
so
Shay?
yeah, so good. I just want to pick up on a really key word you said there, Jamie, inflammation. And
Mm,
something I kind of lean into is that fat retention, unwanted fat retention, is the body inflamed. It's chronic inflammation, as it were. And let's not forget that when the body's stress response is activated, it raises cortisol. And we
Right.
know that cortisol is the number one fat retention hormone. So when that's present in our bodies and the constant messaging and signaling is danger, danger, stress response, our body is going to hold on to all kinds, okay? And
mhm.
that's going to be hard to let go. And I'll share a little bit more on that later. But it's going to lead to a host of chronic, metabolic health issues, as it were. So being able to just lean into that one and lean into that messaging. And, along with that, let's not forget our mental health improvements. Remember,
Mhm.
everything's connected. Body,
Yes.
soul, spirit, heart, everything is connected. We cannot separate them. This is huge. My clients, and I know for a fact that a lot of our members have also reported, there's a huge drop off and even a disappearance of things like anxiety, depression, OCD behaviors, even spectrum symptoms. I've seen this and I've personally worked with clients. They start to drop off and diminish as well. We've got to remember that food is messaging, food or formulations, whether it's whole foods or it's junk formulations, it's messaging, it's programming. Input equals output. It's a basic
Mhm.
engineering, statement there. And whole foods, they play a crucial role in supporting our mental health through that gut-brain
Mhm.
axis, the bidirectional messaging, which actually is mostly a down-up, sorry, a down upwards rather than an up-down communication
Yes.
network between our central nervous system, the brain, the enteric nervous system, our vagus nerve, which plays a huge part in our digestion, governing of that, the parasympathetic, sympathetic. So all of that is critical. Our serotonin, our dopamine receptors, those are largely made 70% serotonin, dopamine 95% made in the gut. Our immune
Mhm.
system, most of our immune system, where is it? It's in the gut. And so back
Mhm.
to that thing of inflammation, when we're inflamed, if we have an inflamed gut, we're going to have an inflamed everything else. Inflammation, leaky brain, it's a real thing. Go do some research on that.
Yes,
You
it
know,
sure is.
yeah, 100%, and so how do we just quickly start to shift that? Well, it's back to, it's in our name, real food recovery. It's whole foods, our prebiotic fibers, our polyphenols, which are our bioactive compounds. They're antioxidant, anti-inflammatory, our omega-3 fatty acids, all these different beautiful whole foods that is messaging, that is chemical messaging for our body to thrive and grow and heal and be whole, so that ultimately we can show up thriving in our best self.
Yeah. That's funny that you bring up that part about stress and your gut and things like that. Yesterday, I happened to have a weird day that I didn't have appointments scheduled in the afternoon. So I literally stayed, I mean, I worked, but I worked from home at a slower clip without like strong deadlines hanging over. I wasn't racing from thing to thing like I usually do. I'm usually from thing to thing, literally racing through my day, eating a few bites between appointments or where I'm going in the car. Most of my meals are in the car. And I said to my husband last night, I'm like, the weirdest thing happened today. I didn't even realize it, but I didn't have a gripping in my chest. And
Mm.
it wasn't till it was gone that I'm like, oh, that pain that I'm just used to, it's not there. And I think it was there wasn't a gun at my back and I just went slower. And I did notice not only was this physical tightness in my chest not there, I wasn't as like panicked to get my next meal. I wasn't really thinking about that. It
Yeah.
didn't create hunger in me
So
so
good.
much. I'm just like, oh, I'd been lost in a project I was working on. Oh, I guess I am hungry. So it was amazing how a more relaxed environment internally made a complete impact on my digestive system and in my chest as well. I mean, I know they're connected is my point. So I need to get more of that. I told my husband that I
Good.
need to get more of that in my day. But anyway, I love all of
It's,
these points. Were you going to say something, Jamie?
yeah, this reminds me of, I don't remember who, maybe Shay, but I don't remember who the thought leader is, but they talked about one of this thought leaders. He's well known for his, anxiety recovery work
Hmm.
or
Hmm.
anxiety, mitigation.
Hmm.
And one of his big things that he tells everyone is go through your entire day doing all the things you normally do, but do them
Yeah.
extremely slowly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Walk
Yeah.
slower, chew
Hmm.
slower, drive, slower, be more. I mean, he's very specific. And Shay, do you know who I'm talking about?
There's a few names that come to mind, but I don't
Yeah,
want to
a
just
few,
throw out.
it's not, yeah,
Yeah.
it's not just one person, but this particular thought leader is who I heard it
Mm.
coin this. And he's absolutely right. And people said, oh, it's amazing. Like I don't need my anxiety medication when I just
Yeah.
slow
Yeah.
down. And I'm like, yeah, like it
Yeah.
really is very
Yeah.
simple.
Totally.
And it's not to blame anyone. This is not a judgment of someone's character. This is just the nature of the world we live in.
Yeah.
And we get so caught up in the world. And when I get so caught up in the world, I tend to react to and try to, keep up with the pace of the world. And
Yeah.
that is
Yeah.
a surefire way for me to disconnect
Yeah.
from the things that matter.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yesterday was a real eye opener for me. And
Yeah.
I love what you said about it's the people that have anxiety, which I'm sure I do. I'm like, yeah, I wouldn't need to be medicated if I had every day like this. I mean, I'm not, but I just was
Yeah.
thinking about that. This
Oh,
this is the antidote for anxiety, just going a
yeah,
little slower.
one of them. And
Yeah.
then of course there are some people that say, I don't want to slow down. I don't want to feel everything. I don't want to see my
Yeah.
thoughts. I don't, and
Yeah.
that's the other level, right? That's like,
Yeah.
okay, why? Right?
Yeah.
What's going on
Yeah.
deep under there that you're trying to cover up with all this activity?
Absolutely. And interestingly, again, there's a lot of different reasons. So I understand that there's a place and, when it comes to different mental health issues and things, but I often listen when I hear the word I feel anxious or I'm feeling this anxiety. That feeling tells me a story of the body. And I wonder how much of that is raised adrenaline and cortisol in our system that just needs to move out. Now, I'm not saying that's for everyone, but sometimes if we just stop, slow down, drop, that cortisol and that adrenaline in our body, I think stuff will start to shift there. So, yeah.
And I
So
love what you said.
another,
I just want you said something really poignant about when you're racing around, it's like, what are you trying to cover up? Which I thought, well, that's the entire essence of what we're doing here in recovery, right? Is looking at the things that people are using food to numb for. So anyway, I love that. And I love all these different things that we're bringing up, which leads into the next question of how can someone track these kinds of changes? What does that look like? We've already shared a little bit about how we measure how we are doing, but in case we miss anything, here's a couple more ideas. One tool is journaling. Write down how you're feeling, which
Mhm.
is exactly what I was verbally telling you guys about my yesterday, physically, emotionally, mentally at the start of your journey, and then check in weekly or monthly to see what's changed.
Mm, mm,
yeah,
mm.
well, I love that. So another idea is, again, Paige talked about the changes, tracking your changes, but looking at your habits, right?
Mhm.
I'll give an example. I got into a habit of first thing in the morning, instead of connecting with God and connecting with, my physical self in the sense of checking in or moving my body or asking it what it needed for that moment or for that morning. I got into this bad habit, right around the change of, 2024 into 2025. There was a lot going on in the US, right? You know, big shifts in the political landscape and the social landscape. And I got totally caught up in all of the media around that. And I found myself first thing in the morning diving into the media, and I felt super disconnected from everything and everyone doing that. Because I was not, I was taking, I'd replace an old, very healthy habit with a new unhealthy habit
Yeah.
for
Yeah.
me. And it went down it took me to a place of disconnection from the things that mattered in my recovery. So I had to make sure that I replaced that new habit that I had created with the old
Yeah.
things that I knew worked for me. Um,
Yeah.
the other thing is, habit stacking, right? And I was just working with a coachee yesterday as, a surgeon and in one of our major medical centers. And she's was sent to me for coaching around time management and prioritization skills. And um, she's talking about some of the ways that she wants to do some things differently. And she said, well, how would you coach me? How would you coach someone to do a different habit or to pick up a new habit?
Mm.
That they don't already have. And I said, habit stacking. And she said, what is that? And this is a person who, is in her fourth year of residency. She's obviously very, very smart, very skilled. She's a burgeoning breast surgeon. Like she obviously has a lot of skill sets, but she doesn't, have the skill set of very basic things around how to create new and habits that serve her. And I thought that was so interesting, right? To say that no matter where you are in life, like, whether you are, and someone who others might label as a very accomplished and well-rounded, or someone that maybe doesn't have a lot of skills, there's always room to add these kinds of tools. And habit stacking, the example I gave her was, if I have a client who has to take a certain medication or supplement for their health and they're forgetting to do it, I would attach that particular action to something they already do already.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
do they brush their teeth every day at a certain time? Well, put your supplement right next to your toothbrush so that every time you brush your teeth, you're taking your supplement. For me, I have to take, a lot of supplements, and I put them I always sit down at my table to have my meal in the morning or anytime I eat. And I have my supplements right in front of me. So as I'm eating, I'm literally taking my supplements at the same
Oh, that's
time.
a good idea.
I don't eat a meal without looking to take a supplement anymore.
Yeah.
Even if I'm out at a restaurant, I'm always like,
Mm.
oh, okay, I'm eating something. I should be also taking my supplement. So I'll grab my stuff out of my bag and take them. So again, these are just examples of quick ways to make some changes.
Yeah, I think that's so good, Jamie, because again, we can't get away from the basics. And basics is elementary in the sense of like it's beneath us. They're foundational in the sense that they are beneath us, but they're actually what we build on.
Yeah.
And we're going to have a strong, strong building of ourselves. We've got to have really strong foundations and keep those, And so another one of those basics, I would say, or foundational fundamentals is having a support group. Like us here at Real Food Recovery, honestly, it's one of the most beautiful spaces. And we have this time and time again, don't we? We hear from members. Thank God or thank, the universe for RFR. Thank goodness that I've got this space, because it's when others notice those changes and they can reflect it back to us, it builds us up. It's for me, it's really important to be known somewhere, to be really known, to be seen, to be heard, to be understood, because I firmly believe that all transformation happens in community. And healing can only happen when you feel safe, when you feel that safety of I can come and I can just be me. Having the right support, the right system, the right accountability, it's a huge key for me. So yeah, let's not forget that one of community.
Yeah, I
Love it.
agree. So let's finish up by touching on the topic of overcoming scale obsession or breaking free from scale obsession, because even if you know it's not the best measure, it can still be hard to let go. I do not deny anybody if they have those feelings. I understand it's a real thing. So it really is a tempting little devil, isn't it? So to start with, the first step could be reframing the scale as just one tool, not the whole story. it's like looking at one page of a book and thinking you've read the whole thing. Plus, for me, it controlled how I felt about myself. That was the biggest one. How dare you tell me how I feel about me? And I decided nothing was going to have that much power over me to start my day in that way. I discovered that if you are doing everything in your power to live this rich, full, beautiful life, then there's nothing more that can be done. So if that's the case, then it doesn't matter what the scale says if you're already doing literally everything in your power. And you know if you are or you aren't. And if you aren't, okay, let's take a look at that and make some changes where necessary. So now I start my day with prayer and a scriptural routine versus weighing myself and starting my day in emotional turmoil underneath the covers after I found the number on the scale. There was a time that I remember vividly. I went back to bed and pulled the covers up over my head and started crying because it wasn't, I thought I was going to have this great day and a drop of a few ounces, but it wasn't. And I'm like, okay, this is crazy making. I've got to stop it. So, Jamie, why do you want to sum up why you gave up the scale?
Because it sent me back into my disordered behaviors. I mean,
Yeah.
really, like this
Yeah.
for me is for me, it's bigger than the term, addiction. Because I am reacting food, that's why I kind of pull away from this whole idea of, the term food addict today, even though Paige and I branded our whole campaign right around this term. For me, I'm acting exactly the way that my body's designed to act around these highly addictive processed foods. So it's not so much that I am a food addict. I believe that I have disordered behaviors around addictive foods. I have disordered behaviors around my body and around others when it comes to trying to moderate these processed, highly addictive foods.
Mhm.
And when I'm not doing other things to support my recovery, like we've talked about today, all the other things, I get way too obsessed with the shape, size, weight, uh, composition of my body. And that takes me away from all the other things that I need to do to be a productive member of society, really,
Yeah.
and to be who God created me to be.
Yeah.
Mhm.
And so when I think about why I don't, or gave up the scale, or it's because it's way more. I am way more than that number. And I, when I obsess about that number, or I obsess about the way I look, or I obsess about the catching myself looking in the mirror or comparing myself to another body shape, or anything, or comparing myself to the way I looked years ago.
Mhm.
Um, any of those things, that is just me in my disorder. It's in my
Yeah.
disease. And I don't want to live there anymore. I've spent 45 plus years living there, and I don't want to do that anymore.
Yeah, yeah, so powerful, Jamie. Yeah, I think for me is I had to come to a really honest place about who or what was defining me. What was
Yeah.
the source that was defining me? And I'm not saying that it's a bad thing, but for me, I had to go, okay, I have a faith, I believe in God. That's who defines me. That's who's created me, that's
Mhm.
defined me. And I'll live from that place, that audience of one, as it were. He defines me, he is my source. But then also asking myself and my clients, who do we want to be? Who do I want to be, and how do I want to feel? Because the goal is freedom, right? At the end of the day, the goal
Yeah.
is freedom, to
Yeah.
live freely, to live life full. And so for me, this whole thing of recovery, what's defining me is actually really identity reformation. Who are we being and becoming? Who are we becoming a person that is thriving and all of that? It's what are those beliefs that are driving our identity, that show up in our behaviors and our habits? And that's where we've got to do the deep work, I think. No
Mhm.
scale, no food, no anything else. Those are just the signs of actually where does our identity lie? What is rooted in, who are we? And so it's becoming someone who XYZ does this. Jamie is someone who in the morning XYZ. Paige is someone in the morning who dot dot dot, and asking
Mhm.
myself, is this going to produce stress, a sense of imprisonment, feeling trapped, or actually do I feel freedom in this? Maybe one day I can use it if I need to, but we've got to be honest. If we're aware of any current action or anything that is moving us out of freedom and away from calm and empowered states and into a sense of entrapment and stress, then it's actually not helping us. And where are we getting our value and our validation in who we are from? So, yeah, just a few thoughts there.
Yeah,
I love
I
it.
love it. All right, to wrap up, if you're listening today and you're feeling frustrated with the scale, we hope you leave with a little more hope and perspective than whenever you started listening, because recovery from ultra processed food, it's a journey. It just takes time. And it's much more than about just weight. Your body is healing. Think about that too. Your body is literally healing at the same time you're getting off these, I'm going to call them drugs, that you've
Yeah.
maybe been on for maybe a majority of your life. A lot of changes going on inside your body, and it's healing in ways that you cannot always see. But we mentioned this earlier, you've got to trust the process, because your body is pretty forgiving and it will comply if you give it everything that it needs to. So you're doing amazing work. So many small victories are happening on the inside, and that's what we really want to focus on, real growth. So we've got some time for a few quick listener questions. The first one is, how do I deal with friends and family who keep asking me if I've lost weight? It's frustrating because they don't understand what recovery is about. This is a very real issue that people have to deal with. I would tell them that you are on a healing journey from years of going at it down the wrong path for you. And now that you found a better way, one of the most important things you are learning is patience, because this is not a quick fix, and how proud you are of yourself for making that type of progress. That's one idea. If any of you want to add on to that, feel free. Otherwise, I'll let Jamie take the next one.
I would I would go so far as to say my body shape, size, or anything I put in it is none of your business. You could say it nicer than
You could
that,
do that.
right? But I didn't know what I chose to do with or for my body was anyone else's business. How are you?
Yeah.
Like, that's it. That's just
Go ahead and
Yeah.
take that next question, Jamie.
how do I handle it when I see other people in recovery who are losing weight faster than me? It makes me feel like I'm failing. So there, it's an opportunity, right? That is a number one exclamation point red flag that you are in your disordered thinking around recovery, right? Recovery is not measured by
Yeah.
you comparing yourself to others. It's measured by you, where you are, where you want to go, what you're doing for you.
Yeah.
Comparison is the thief of joy. There really is nothing good that can come from it. You are not that other person. You do not have their chemistry. You do not have their cellular biology. Obviously you share characteristics, right? We're all human, but that's where it stops, right? You simply you cannot compare yourself to another human because you don't have the same genes.
I love what you said. Thoughts are just nothing more than opportunities.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Basically, that's huge.
Yeah. So good. Yeah, so another question that often gets asked is, can stress and emotions affect weight loss and recovery? I feel like I'm holding on to weight no matter what I do. So my short answer is yes, because you are, but it's not your fault. And here's a big why. Okay. And so we've got to understand this bottom up approach. We are living in an incredibly complex, amazing body with a nervous system that has got a big job of keep you safe, out of danger, away from discomfort, away from pain, and in comfort and familiarity. Okay. And we've got to remember that if the message that our body is getting from headquarters is one of danger, danger all the time, logically, our head might know we're not in danger, but physiologically, our body is going to respond with a very different story, okay? Enter the out of tune symphony, okay? So all that cortisol, or the physiological stress response of, moving into our sympathetic, which is the fight, the flight, the freeze, the fawn, all the different, whatever states are coming in. And again, because cortisol is the number one fat retention hormone, if the body's story is one of danger or deprivation, that's why diets don't work, friends, anything of threat, it's going to instantly hold on to unwanted fat. Why? Because fat is a wonderful warmth thing. It keeps us warm. It's an energy source. It holds nutrients in it, etc., etc. So the body is actually trying to do you a favor. Ironically, it's trying to keep you safe because the story is threat, danger. And so that's why back to the low and slow relaxation, bringing us out of that stress response is really key, which again, all those chemicals do, they cause a big stress response. So yeah.
I think that's a great place to end on, unless Jamie, do you want to say anything else? You want to
No,
add?
great summary.
Yeah, I think so too. This has been wonderful, and it's been great having Shay, and we look forward to having her more often with us. And if you want to find out more about us, you can find us at realfoodrecovery4u.com. That's the number 4 and the letter U, and we hope to see you there. Thanks, guys. See you next time. Bye-bye.
Take care.